and ask that you chat in your questions using the chat box functionality, selecting all panelists. We will set time aside at the end of today's webinar to address these questions. For those LMSWs and LMHCs interested in obtaining CEUs, you'll be eligible to receive 1.5 CEUs for attending this training. Information regarding obtaining CEUs will be sent out after the event in a post-event email. Finally, towards the end of today's webinar, we will be sending around a feedback survey using the chat box functionality. We ask that you click the link that is shared in the chat box and complete the feedback survey. We appreciate you filling this out as it allows us to understand your experience and enhance our future offerings. With that, thank you all for attending. And I will hand it over to our partner, Evelyn Blank, Executive Director at the New York Center for Child Development and Director of TTAC, who will walk us through a brief introduction before our presenter begins. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Ian. So I just wanted to briefly mention who we are. The New York City Early Childhood Mental Health Training and Technical Assistance Center, otherwise known as TTAC, is funded by the New York City Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, and is a partnership between the New York Center for Child Development and the McSilver Institute on Poverty Policy and Research. New York Center for Child Development has been a major provider of early childhood mental health services in New York, and we have expertise in informing policy and supporting the field of early childhood mental health through both training and technical assistance, as well as direct practice. NYU McSilver Institute for Poverty Policy and Research houses PeerTAC and the Community and Managed Care Technical Assistance Centers, which offer clinic, business, and system transformation support statewide to all behavioral health providers. TTAC is tasked with building the capacity and competencies of mental health and early childhood professionals through ongoing training and technical assistance. If we go to the next slide, there's a screenshot of our website, and I wanted to let people know that prior presentations are archived there, and you can search for previous trainings. You'll get both the PowerPoint as well as a video recording of it, and hope that you'll be able to use that. And on the next slide, we just wanted to let people know that we've just launched 2 LMS learning modules that really focus on infant and early childhood mental health. And these are great introductory modules for people who are really new to the field and really entering. The first module in the series is the impact of early childhood adversity, and the second is nurture and resilience, supporting infant and early childhood mental health. So it's now my pleasure to turn over to Dr. Gil Foley, the clinical co-director of TTAC, who will introduce our speakers today. Thank you. You're on mute.
I'm muted. Sort of a hazard, isn't it? Well, thank you, Evelyn, and welcome, colleagues, for another exciting TTAC presentation. I think we're really breaking some new ground this afternoon, and I'm sure you will find it quite illuminating. So let me introduce our distinguished guests. Dr. Susie Tortora is the founder and director of the Dancing Dialogue. She is a dance movement psychotherapist who practices in Cold Spring, New York, and in Manhattan. She specializes in parent, infant, child, family therapy, trauma, and medical illness. She's the spokesperson for the International Medical Creative Arts for the Andrea Rizzo Foundation. In 2003, she created and is currently the senior dance movement therapist for pediatric patients at Integrated Medicine Service at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center in New York City. She received in 2010 the Marion Chase Distinguished Dance Movement Therapist Award. She holds faculty positions nationally and internationally, and offers an international webinar training program, and is a published author. The Dancing Dialogue, using the communicative power of movement with young children, is used extensively in dance movement therapy and is truly in the canon of that specialty. Her current book, which she will be discussing today with her co-author, Miri Kiran, is a dance movement therapy for infants and young children with medical illness, treating somatic and psychic distress. And I must say, Susie is a deeply respected colleague, and her work is exquisite, both clinically and aesthetically. And as she is truly a leading dance movement therapist educator. And we're especially honored to have a very distinguished guest from Israel, Dr. Miri Kiran. She is a child and adolescent psychiatrist, is a clinical assistant professor emeritus at Tel Aviv University. She serves as a clinical research consultant at the Early Childhood Outpatient Clinic of the Ziv Bar Ilan University, Beit Izzy Shapra Center for Disabled Infants and Toddlers, and at the Failure to Thrive unit of Schneider Children's Hospital for Sick Children. She is the former president of the World Association of Infant Mental Health and chair of the World Psychiatric Association Perinatal Section. So, honored guests, please take the floor.
Hello to everyone. Thank you so much, Dr. Foley and Evelyn Blank, dear colleagues and friends. I want to just start with our learning objectives today, and then I'll be handing it over to Dr. Kieran. So first and foremost, we want to help you understand the strong link between the parent-infant relationship and infant mental health, and help you learn how creative arts therapies are used to create an embodied, coherent narrative. I'll be describing what that is soon, to facilitate psychobehavioral change. We also want to help you be able to reflect on what and when and how to choose a creative arts therapy or a more traditional word-focused caregiver child therapeutic approach, and we will have time for questions and answers. Before I hand it over to Dr. Kieran, I did want to just give you a quick understanding of what creative arts therapies are and what the expressive arts therapies are. So the traditional definition of the creative arts therapies are that they are a licensed mental health field that uses different creative practices to help adults and children achieve developmental, behavioral, mental health, and physical health goals. The areas of specialty that are practiced are music therapy, art therapy, dance movement therapy, drama therapy, psychodrama therapy, and poetry therapy. Now, I've been trained a very long time, and at that time when we first began, we would specialize in one of those creative arts therapies. I think the easiest way to think about it is that we are a psychotherapy like any other psychotherapy, but we add these creative arts means for experiential explorations of what's going on. The expressive arts therapies grew from the individual creative arts therapies, and people trained specifically in expressive arts therapies interweave all those different creative arts therapies within their practice. Now, back in the day when I trained, we also learned about the other creative arts therapies. So I am a dance movement therapist, but you will see in the case study that we present that I do integrate a lot of music. I use art materials as well. And so I just wanted to give you that overview. People may wonder what expressive arts therapies are compared to the creative arts therapies. So just to say it simply, these days, if you have an expressive arts therapy degree, you are trained in all the mediums. If you have a creative arts therapy degree, you're trained in one specific medium. Your degree is in that specific medium. So just to give you an understanding of our training, the creative arts therapies are a mental health profession. In New York State, we have a license. We're the first state that has a license. So we're LCATs, Licensed Creative Arts Therapies. That means that we have been completed an accredited master's level degree. There is a music therapy degree that is an undergrad degree, but all the other therapies do require a master's level degree. We are supervised by an LCAT. We have to complete at least 1,500 hours of supervision and clinical work. We have to pass a board certified exam. We have to complete additional hours, 1,500 hours for supervision, postgraduate clinical work. We then have to get our LCAT state license through New York State Office of Professions. That we received, that began in 2005. We do have to continue with CE credits. And then for each of our disciplines, so for me as a dance movement therapist, we do have these additional requirements that we have to do. We start out as a registered dance movement therapist when you have to work under a practitioner, and then we can become board certified after 700 hours of supervision. And that allows us then to also teach and have our own private practice. So I did want to just put that out there so you have a little bit of a sense of what our educational background is and where we fit in the line of mental health practitioners. I'm now going to hand it over to Dr. Miri Kieran.
Thank you, Susie. I'm simply a child psychiatrist, not not dancing, not singing, just playing with words and toys and looking at the parent-infant relationship. But I have learned from Susie the specific or the uniqueness of creative art therapy in our umbrella of interventions. So my role today here is just to remind us just a little bit, because I know that you know most of it, the very close link between parent-infant relationship and infant mental health. Susie, can you? So we all remember the famous sentence that Winnicott had already in 1956. It's amazing, saying that there is no such a thing as a baby alone. By the way, the continuation of this sentence is there is no such a thing as a parent or as a mother without a baby. So really, it shows how much it's interrelated, for the good and for the less good. So it is quite useful, I think, to use Samarov's transactional model for understanding both normal and abnormal development. This model shows the very kind of complex interplay. Susie, can you show the whole slide, because it's along the axis of time. So we have C1 for the child at time 1, C2 at time 2, and so on. And E comes for environment, so environment at time 1, 2, and so on. Here is the relationship or the interaction between the child and his or her close environment that has in itself a dynamic. But it's much more complicated than that, because on both the environment, so the caregivers and the child, there is a very complex interplay between genetic factors, biological factors, culture, life events that you can never predict, and what we know about the psychological stages of development. So this model tells us, in a way, that our ability to predict at time 3 what will be the child that we saw at time 1 is kind of low. So this is not nice for longitudinal research people, but for intervention purpose, actually, this is quite an optimistic model, because if the interaction works on the parent-child relationship very early, then it may set a different course of development for the child. The caregivers also change with time. So it's really a very dynamic model. Susie, please. So how does it work? We know quite well now that early interventions really impact on the brain, literally, by strengthening or weakening and pruning synapses that were formed already during pregnancy. So we may have new synapses. We will have, through learning and memory, increasing linkages among neurons by repeated experience. And you will see then, when Susie shows the intervention, you need to think that these very early intervention act upon the brain if they are early enough. Another process that takes place is the laying down of myelin, and which increases the speed of conduction. And last but not least is that we know that synapses may be eliminated by toxic substances, but also by very stressful experiences or the absence of very important experiences, such as attachment experiences, or growing up in very deprived environments. So these environmental factors are really recognized to be critical to the differentiation of the brain tissue itself. During the early years of life, the basic circuits of the brain are developing, and so they are the substrate of mental processes that involve emotions, memory, behavior, and interpersonal relationship. So a developmental history of consistent and supportive care engenders secure attachment that you all know about, and early competence, which in turn play a critical role in later adaptation. So that was just a reminder so that we are all on the same page. Now, one of the environmental factors that is extremely important is the parent insightfulness that has been shown as linked very closely to the child's resilience. And it's not surprising, because we are talking about sensitive, emotionally regulating parenting. We are talking about a quality of interactions that is embedded in the everyday routines. It includes both insight and empathy. This was shown by David Oppenheim, actually in Haifa, in Israel, sorry. So he took the concept of mentalization and broke it into a way of assessing the level of insight and empathy that are conveyed by the parents, or simply saying, seeing things from the child's point of view. Simple sentence, but this may take us a year just to get the parents seeing the things from the child's point of view. So, meaning we want them to have insight regarding their motives, the reasons for their behavior. We want them to have a complex view of the child, not seeing him kind of a one-sided way. We want them to be open regarding the child and also themselves, and to accept the child as it is, as he is or she is. And Susie, yeah. Experiencing a secure attachment has also been shown as a major tenet of the development of the representation of the self as a valued and competent individual. In contrast, insecure attachment with the caregiver plays a major role in the development of representations characterized by mistrust, anger, anxiety, and/or fear. Of course, not every insecure attachment leads to this representation, but when they are at the extreme point on the continuum of insecure attachment, we do see them basically as personality disorder individual with a lot of mistrust, anger, and anxiety, especially the borderline personality disorder, who become parents. And then we have them in our therapy room. So better to understand how it happened, how they developed into such a personality with structure. And because this will help us to be empathic with them and to make the link between what they had experienced with their parenting behaviors, their present parenting behaviors. Please, Susie. this security of attachment is really when we look at the long-term impact, it's the data is endless, as it shows that the quality of peer relationship along the years is very much dependent on the security of attachment that we can already see at the age of 1. Ellen Sroufe made these studies many years ago, and then Peter Fonagy had shown the link between secure attachment, mentalization, and the development of theory of mind and empathy. And he was the one who made the link between very early adverse interpersonal experiences and personality disorders in adulthood. Susie? Thank you. So what do we want to do with our interventions? Basically, we all have the same goals, but we have different routes, like all the ways lead to Rome. And we have to have in mind, what is our goal? What do we want to achieve? Most of us, I mean, whoever is clinician in infant mental health, aims at restoring the adaptive path of the early parent-infant relationship in any situation that has impinged on the way that either the parent, the infant, or both are able to engage in a healthy interaction. And both verbal and nonverbal communication between the parent and the infant take place around all the dimensions of caregiving. So when we listen to Susie, we will listen mostly about nonverbal communication, but it will be about the dimensions of caregiving. So it will be about how to ensure physical safety, how to provide for basic needs, how the parent conveys investment and commitment, how much he or she is able to establish structure and routines, how much the parent is able to respond, to recognize first and to respond to the infant or the young child's emotional needs and signals that are mostly nonverbal, how much the parent is able to provide comfort for distress. This is the attachment part. Discipline is an important issue, as we do meet quite often parents who are afraid of saying no, who are afraid of putting limits, especially if the child has experienced a traumatic experience, such as an illness, for example, or a long hospitalization, or a chronic life-threatening illness. Parents are very reluctant, some of them are very reluctant to say no to the child, even though, yeah, it's true, the child has suffered, it's true, very much true, but still, he needs the no, he needs the limit. Engaging in play and enjoyable activities. This is the part that you cannot be with Susie without starting to enjoy and to move and to smile. So I think that this piece is really very relevant to Susie's work. Well, to dance therapy, but I know mostly Susie, so. Showing interest in the infant's individual experience and perspective, so putting himself in the shoes of the child, and engaging in reflectiveness, okay, regarding the infant's developmental trajectory. And when we listen to the case just a bit later, you will see how much this was present in the intervention. And last but not least, this is sometimes the most difficult piece, to tolerate ambivalent feelings in ourselves. in the caregiver and also, I think, in the therapist, in our countertransference movements. And so these are a very summarized list of what do we mean by the parent-infant relationship. How does it express itself in the daily life and in the daily caregiving task that that any parent of a very young child has? Not only a very young child, actually, I think it's very much true for older children as well, and even for adolescents, of course, in different manners according to the age of the child. Now, this was the caregiver's piece. The child brings also its own risk and protective factors to the interaction. And this is super, super important because we tend to look mostly at the parent and to forget that some children have characteristics that are very difficult for the parent, that are very challenging for the parent. And we can see this in families with more than one child. When one child evokes negative attributions, negative projections from the parent, and his or her brother did not, and they have the same parents. Okay, this may come from the child's own risk factors. So we look at the temperament. Easy temperament is usually a protective factor, and difficult temperament is usually a risk factor, but not always true. An easy temperament baby in a baby home setting, in an institution setting, may actually, it may be for him detrimental because he doesn't cry, he doesn't ask for help, he's very easy. Okay. So we look at these factors as both potential risk and protective factors. The sensory profile of the child is very, very important. Again, we will see that in the case. The physical appearance. The child who is beautiful physically evokes something very different from a child who is not. And okay, we all love babies, but the truth is that not all babies are beautiful. Especially in the parent's eyes, that's the point. The physical health of the child is a very important factor, and of course, the developmental competencies of the child. Susie?
Thank you so much, Miri, and I hope that was a good overview for all of you to understand the perspective from which we're coming. So I'm going to start now by describing my particular program that I call Ways of Seeing is the intervention methodology, and the way I help parents and help them understand their child is another program I call Embodied Parenting, and you will see a combination of both. I call my program Ways of Seeing because I really, for two reasons. One is I know we all need to be seen. That's just a need from birth, and a need for all of us in our life to feel understood and heard and held. I also use a lot of nonverbal observation in my technique, so that seeing is also about opening up your ways to pay attention to the dynamics in the nonverbal experience and the nonverbal expression. And in addition, to pay attention to the qualities of these nonverbal expressions. So I'm not just looking at what the person's doing nonverbally, but the how they're doing it, the quality and the essence of what is coming across. So a quick example is that right now I'm speaking to you at a certain tempo and a certain amount of strength and power in my voice. But if I started to speak to you like this suddenly and started to flitter my hands like this, you might not be able to pay attention as much, right? So those were differences in quality, right? I got lighter, I got quicker, I got a little more flitty in my actions. And that changes how I come across. So that's what I'm talking about, is a quick overview of what I mean by quality of interaction. And in embodied parenting, I'm helping parents pay attention to the felt experience for themselves, as well as what their child's felt experience might be. Not just what the child's thinking, but what does it feel like to be in that child's body, to experience the world from that place of where they are, as well as what's going on for the parent. And are they holding their breath? Are they tensing? Are they really tired? How do their felt experiences influence how they're interpreting what's going on with their child as well? I can have a whole webinar just about those elements. So I am involved in dance movement therapy. Why dance? Does it mean we're prancing around the room? Sometimes, but not always. And how do you put the word therapy next to dance? Everyone, when I tell people I'm a dance therapist, many people say, oh yeah, I love on Friday night after work to dance around in my kitchen. And yes, that is part of dance therapy, just the idea of dancing and moving and the release it creates. But there's a lot more to dance therapy as well. The definition of dance movement therapy from the American Dance Therapy Association is that it is the psychotherapeutic use of movement to further the emotional, cognitive, physical, and social integration of the individual. But what we're also doing, as I spoke earlier, is that we are trained as psychotherapists. So we're using our skills in understanding nonverbal communication. We're using our skills in understanding how it feels to feel connected and embodied versus to feel disembodied. And we use that understanding to help create experiences that allow people to become more in touch with what I call the body-mind-emotion continuum, which I'll show you in a moment. The other piece is that our bodies are tools for the intervention as well. You'll see in the videos of the case I present how I'm actually an active participant and an active player, quite physically and literally. So just to add a few more slides about infant mental health, the ones that are key to my perspective from a dance therapy standpoint is the early work of Myron Hofer, where he talked about the quality of the mother-infant relationship actually affects the physiology, neurophysiology, and psychology of the infant and their development. Now, Miri got into some of that earlier. What's important here is the elements that create these hidden regulators in the ongoing relationship are very multisensory and nonverbal. The quality of touch, the warmth body to body, the smell, all these multisensory elements, the physical proximity and distance of where the parent and the child place themselves. This will be a big one in the case I'm going to show you soon. These are all elements we're paying attention to in dance therapy. And also what we call proprioception, interoception, and the vestibular system that relate to the sensing and position of the movement of the limbs and the body in space, that's proprioception, as well as what it feels like to move through space. And how are those elements influencing the child's ability to be regulated, the parent's ability to be regulated, and how do the emotional and psychological connections get played out through these multisensory and nonverbal elements? Those are the things I'm thinking about when I'm looking at the parent-child relationship. Another key element from my ways of seeing perspective is that all nonverbal acts have the potential to be communications. So we're going to go beyond the behavioral elements that may be presenting and ask, if this behavior or action is a communication, what might this person be saying? So this is important because I'm not trying immediately to rectify a behavior, even if it's an aberrant behavior, even if it's causing a difficulty. I want to say, what is this behavior? What is this child saying? What is this parent saying through the way they're engaging? What's underneath that expression that might be giving me some important information? So I'm not just looking at nonverbal acts like head nodding, pointing, crossing arms, shoulder shrugging. I'm looking again at the overall expression through the full body and facial expression. In traditional nonverbal analysis, it was very, in infant mental health, it was face-to-face interaction. Actually, the camera was on the mother's face, the camera was on the child's face. No one was seeing what was going on underneath. In dance therapy, we're looking at the whole person and the whole movement. So in my ways of seeing, program, when I have three questions I'm always asking when observing a child. First is, how does relating and moving in that child's unique way color their experience? Next, what does it feel like to experience the world through that child's particular expressive movement repertoire? That's that embodied place. And next, how can I set up a therapeutic environment that is structured in such a way to enable the child to experience their way of relating and functioning as a communicative tool, even if it's not super effective in the long run for their functioning? How do I help them feel that they're communicating and I'm here and I care about what they're trying to say, while simultaneously enabling the child to use that experience to explore new ways to interact in the environment, so that I can expand their repertoire and improve the dynamic that's going on in their family, in their larger setting, in the community they're part of. So I talk about the body, mind, emotions as a continuum. You all probably understand in traditional therapy, we're looking at the emotions and our thinking and how the emotions and our mind relate. In dance therapy, we equally give time to the body, our body experience. So we're looking at how our experience in our body influences our thinking and influences our emotions, how our emotions are also connected to our body and to our mind, and how our mind is connected to our emotions and our body. And we can actually enter from the body and the actions, we can enter from thoughts, and we can enter from the emotionality of the person presenting to us. But it's when we look at them all together that we are really working from an embodied place. And so what does this mean, embodied and embodiment? From a dance therapy perspective, as dance therapists, we are trying to create what I call an embodied holding environment, which means that we are tuning in to the body-to-body language on a sensorial level. We are tuning to the actual person and thinking and seeing and feeling what they're saying. We're listening through our whole body. So I'm paying attention, and this is part of what I call embodied countertransference. I'm paying attention to the sensations I'm experiencing in my body. Am I feeling rushed? Am I in some way feeling tense? Is my heart palpitating? Am I getting really sleepy? What are the physical actions that are happening? Am I holding my breath because I'm so tense that maybe something's precarious going on between the child-parent dynamic, or the child maybe has no aversion, is maybe not risk adverse, or maybe they're too risk adverse. And so I'm noticing what I'm thinking, what emotions are coming up for me, as well as what is happening on a body level. And that's how I listen through my whole body. So I call that embodied resonance. I'm paying attention on a moment-to-moment level of images and thoughts that are coming up, of multisensory sensations that I am experiencing, as well as I may be feeling the dyad that I'm working with, or the triad is experiencing, and what are the feeling states that are coming up for me, as well as the individuals. And then I think about what I call the essence in the air. What are the qualities that are hanging around in the room as I'm working on an emotional level, on a sensorial level, and through images and thoughts. So there's a four-part procedure in the therapeutic process. First, I want to match and feel the quality of the nonverbal exchange through attunement and mirroring. In attunement, we are matching the quality that the mover is presenting without having to do the exact action. So maybe the child is crying, and maybe as the child's crying, I'm nodding my head to attune to the rhythm of that cry. In mirroring, we're actually matching the actual action as well as the feeling tone to the action. Next, we want to dialogue through this repertoire of movements, that kind of movement repertoire and movement signature they are presenting with. But from dialoguing with what is being presented, we then want to explore and expand these movements to introduce more ways to move within a realm that's creating a bit of a challenge, but not so out of the way that it's going to be threatening. And then when possible, is there a way to move the communication, the nonverbal communication, to a verbal exchange? Now, this is very important, and this really comes from infant mental health principles of the importance of speaking the unspeakable, finding ways to create language, to create what we call a coherent narrative to what the child is experiencing. Because we know even in infancy, even in pre-verbal experience, the child's picking up on the essence of what's going on, even if they don't have the verbal skills to share it. They can feel the tension, they can feel the joy, they can feel the worry, they can feel the fear that's going on around them. They can feel the dissonance in a dynamic in the family environment. They can feel the stress. So we do want to find ways to create a narrative to help them understand what is the experience that they're having. Next, I have several different observation tools I've made. This one is called, the acronym is DANCE. It stands for Dyadic Attachment-Based Nonverbal Communicative Expressions. And these are the elements that I'm thinking about when I'm watching a parent-child interaction, a triad or a dyad. So first, how are turn-taking interactions opened and closed through each participant's movements, specifically looking at how and who initiates, withdraws, and resumes contact. I'm looking at how mirroring, attunement, and mismatch and repair cycles are happening through the nonverbal movement dialogue. I want to describe and understand the base of support, and this is really coming from Winnicott's work as well as, I'm blanking on his name suddenly, the father of attachment theory, Darwin? No, base of support. Miri, help me here. Why am I losing who came up with base of support? Is it Winnicott? No. I'll think of it in a minute. Sorry, one of those moments. Anyway, how is this safe base of support being developed? Is the parent able to attune to the child's nonverbal cues? Are they able to create a sense of Bowlby, that's it. I'm talking about Bowlby here. Are they able to create a sense of pleasure and understanding and really having a good time with their child? Are they also able to create a place of comfort so that the child, in times of perceived danger, and that's the important one, perceived danger or discomfort, can the child come back and feel held by their parent? But this one is tricky, and I'm going to highlight that because this was an element in the case study. Sometimes when we sense our child and our infant is feeling anxious, we can overly support them for that anxiety, and we can inadvertently create a situation where they're only feeling safe with us or with one particular parent, because the child may be getting so anxious in environments, we start to shut down the elements or tune out the elements that are making them uncomfortable. And so sometimes that can create a dynamic that's very difficult to then break and help the child venture out into the world. So I'm looking to see if there's interactive congruency in the nonverbal styles of the partners and the triad to create complementary and synchronous or harmonious dialogues versus ones that do not feel synchronous and complementary. So in the end, in my approach, and the dance therapy approach to stress and trauma, and to help create a preventative approach to trauma and stress, we talk about, as I said, creating a coherent narrative in verbal therapy, and Alicia Lieberman talks about this in her parent-child psychotherapy, child-parent psychotherapy, CPP. Using that idea of coherent narrative, I think that our job in dance therapy is to create an embodied coherent narrative that fosters the expressivity and empowerment rather than internalized representations of chronic stress and potentially traumatic experiences. And what I mean by that is that I want to pay attention to how the child is feeling on a body level and how they are absorbing and taking in what's going on around them, and how that is influencing how they feel in their body and feel about their experience, not just mentally and emotionally, but sensorially and multisensorially as well. So I hope that gives you a good overview. I'm going to move on now to the case study. I do want to say that the only way to show this study, because I work so physically, is to show the full face and body of each member. So I'm going to ask you to be very respectful. It's really an honor that this family has enabled me to show this video and are open. I do have permission to show it. Please do not take any photos or videos of these clips that I'm showing you. I could not disguise them because you wouldn't be able to see what's going on if I did that. So I want to ask for all of us to be very respectful for this family to allow us to show them in this way. I have tried to disguise as much as possible any identifying information, but you will hear me speaking the child's name because these are just clips that I took through our intervention. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of background about this family. They came to me when the child was 14 months old. At this particular time, they had already gone through several different intervention evaluations, early intervention evaluations. And I'm just going to give you a little description of how the child was explained to me by their parents. My 14-month-old is bright, engaged, loving, curious, determined, perceptive, emphatic, happy, but highly irritable, inflexible, clinging, skittish, overwhelmed by the world, sleeps only 30 minutes, shows no interest in toys, and screams to communicate. You can imagine what that feels like to imagine sleeping only 30 minutes at a time. And this was now at 14 months. And this was very real. So you can imagine the sleep deprivation the family was experiencing. They then proceeded to tell me all the different evaluations they had had. The infancy researcher suggests holding off on neurological testing, referring a psychoanalytically trained therapist to evaluate instead. This therapist interprets the difficulty as the mom's problem merging and resisting the baby's autonomy due to abandonment fears. The neurologist notes that the infant is colic, irritable, and socially avoidant. They diagnose the infant with self-regulatory difficulties and at risk for autism. The early intervention specialists evaluated these evaluations stated there were sensory sensitivities and there was a highly significant range for anxiety disorders, but not ASD, not autism spectrum disorders, and they diagnosed the child with emotional disorders of childhood, NOS. So the mom and dad reflected with me on the difficulties they were having as a threesome. This is the firstborn child, much awaited for child, much loved child with some issues in conceiving. And so as their joy of having this child came along, when the child was conceived, there was also a lot of issue because there's high anxiety in the family. There was some family history of autism. And when these behaviors started to show up, of course, that escalated the parents' worry. But they also had these divergent professional opinions. And so that left them feeling blamed, unheard, and exasperated. So I used this nonverbal approach that I'm talking about for assessment and intervention. And I really work from a triadic model. Many of the sessions, all three members of the family were present. And I'm really looking at these qualities of each how each mover was presenting through their own movement qualities as well. And looking at this from what Daniel Stern talks about as vitality affects to try to understand how I could transform the difficulties that were happening in the attachment relationship using dance and movement. So I also understood in looking at this family and watching this child that there was a much more complex thing going on here than just blaming it honestly on the mother, which was what was happening in some of the other evaluations. I felt the sensory piece was a very big part of what was going on. There was some speech and language processing issues that I had a hunch might be happening. And that I really felt that the other specialists had not been able to hold the parents' needs as well as the child's needs, and that they were not looking at the whole child within the whole family system. So I'm going to start with this first video. I will put on my headset because there's going to be some music in the background, and I want you to be able to hear me as well. And before let me make sure that my headset is working for you. Yes, so I'm assuming you can all hear me, right? Whoops, hold on. Okay, oh, 1 second. So before I go into this, I do want to say that some of the things I noticed with a lot of what I call embraced space, a lot of close proximity of the mother and the baby. You will see early on, this was the position that was going on very frequently. Dad was often to the side. So I had some goals right away that I wanted to work on. And then you also see there's some motor planning issues with the child. He was only newly starting to walk at this age. So I wanted to improve on a body level coordination, body coordination and connectedness within his body and feeling confident in his body. I wanted to improve the role that dad had in being able to be an active member of the triad rather than the feeling that the baby was only safe with mom and in mom's close proximity. I wanted to lower the anxiety level for all of them and help the parents understand and be able to tolerate the child's distress. And to help the child, his name is Eli, be able to handle that if he was distressed, it wasn't the end of the world, that maybe sometimes his distress and those crying episodes were really just complaining. And I wanted to also help everyone pay attention to what they were feeling and how maybe their own projections were playing into the dynamic as well. So you'll start by seeing a song that we played. And this is a song that I think someone has to mute themselves, please. That might be Evelyn, I'm not sure. Please mute someone who doesn't have their phone muted. Thank you. You're going to see music in the background. This is a game we were playing, and you'll see some props that I use. And so this is kind of a combination in using the music and some props. This is their first session at 14 months old. Oh. And we're just playing around with the scarves about letting go, which is a theme emotionally about letting the child let go of his need to hold on to mom all the time. But you can see, even when dad comes close, the child is not that interested in engaging with his dad. So right now, we're just playing with the rhythm of the music, helping the child get comfortable. This is the first session. And it's symbolic. We're talking about being able to let go through this song. Now watch, mom picks up the egg shaker, an instrument in music therapy. And now our job is to follow and match the child's rhythm. I start a rhythm and I'm matching the child's actions. So this is a mirroring of the child. When he switches from side to side to up and down with the shaker and then drops the shaker, we all drop it. You've got some strong arm. So I'm showing him. So what I'm showing him here is that his actions have an effect on all of us. We're following, we're watching, but we're all watching. It's not just his mom that's attuning to him.
Toss.
One more. Yeah, scoop right into mommy. Next, at this part of the treatment, I'm trying to help him understand that he's safe in both mom's arms and dad's arms. So we play a game of transferring him back and forth. At first, he's not thrilled, and mom's not as sure either. But again, I'm helping them tolerate their distress and helping them know that this can be a fun game.
Let's try that back and forth a little. Let's see how that goes between mommy and daddy. Should we try? Woo! That's it. Let's try. There you go. So reach for
And helping him.
That's it.
I'm also helping him navigate his vestibular system, letting him move through space and being able to stay organized on a multisensory level. Then we transition to using a ball and moving the ball back and forth. So again, the ball's literal, but also symbolic. You're safe with mom, you're safe with dad, you can even be safe with me, Dr. Susie.
Oh, coming after him.
Up. Whoa. Up you go.
And
Up you go.
okay, here we go again.
1, 2, 3. Woo! Oh, I've got it.
Dr. Susie has it.
Ready? 1,
2,
3.
Here comes the ball. Yay! You got it. Go get it. Oh, you got
Whoa, good job.
it. Yeah, go for it. Whoa, spin that big ball around.
Wow. Where'd it go?
You can see a little bit of the motor planning difficulty, being able to use the ball as a support and being safe and burying the stability of the ball by having the ball roll and helping him feel that he can navigate even this kind of spontaneous interaction.
Oh,
Oh, look at it, spin. Move it around. Oh, right here.
here it goes. Wow,
Oh, Dr. Susie's
I
going
got it.
Here it
Ready?
comes. One. Dr. Susie's coming.
Here it comes. Woo.
You got it.
And he can be the one transitioning the ball back and forth. So again, his actions have agency. And he's far away from his mom right now, which is a big deal for him. And he's including his dad, which is a really wonderful thing for him. These are just little snippets. This is 3 months into treatment. He's 17 months old. We're talking about him going on his first plane ride. He's distressed by this at first. And I want to, again, continue to help him be comfortable with distress, but also help him feel that we're understanding and listening to him. And so you're going to see in this little vignette, I do actually let him get angry. And then I bring out some more musical instruments from a more music therapy standpoint to help him express his feelings through beating on a drum. You can see his reliance on mom right here. We're playing a game with our feet, coming in and out, but he turns back into mom. It's important to note, I don't know if you can see that with this bar here, hold on. I'll have you watch that again. He tries to curl into mom and mom stays kind of firm and vertical. So he's trying to almost, in this we see a lot happening. So in that nonverbal dynamic, he's trying to shape into his mom, almost to kind of merge with mom, and mom is like holding her own. And ultimately we want to help him know that he can hold his own as well. So it's a little bit of the nonverbal qualitative element I'm looking at. Just gonna move this through a little right here. So you see him kind of rolling into his mom there, wanting to hang on to mom. We decide to get up. I want him to feel his own verticality and kind of feel his own weight. He's not really thrilled to that. He wants to stay with mom, but he does start to engage. So I'm going to just put on the volume here now. But
Mama, Mama, go ahead.
this is a hello song that we sing every week, but he doesn't really want to express himself separate from mom.
Yeah, I have to stop. Right.
That was a moment where mom was asking him if he wanted to do something, and that was something we worked on with language. Instead of always asking him if he wanted something, make statements about things that were happening, and then ask the questions when there was a time for choice, because that was really important. He was always making the choice of no and not wanting to do things. So now we're saying you're going to engage with dad right now as well.
Let's go to Dada and get
Oh, look, I got a whole bunch of scarves here.
Here we
Come
go.
and get them. Why not? Come over here.
Nice yellow scarf.
So now we start to play the scarf game again. Again, you see him very connected to mom.
Here we go.
Floating the scarves around.
Yeah, this one's for you. Yeah, this one's for you. Whoa. Whoa, up and down. Very good asking, Eli.
Now he said he wanted to go up, so we respond because he uses language.
And 2.
Next, we're passing him over
All
again.
right. Here we go. Here we go.
Here he is. We're passing him. And now, for some vestibular stimulation, I put him in the scarf to help him feel that he can rock and feel his own body weight again, and trying to help work on body organization. He's starting to cry, but I see it more as a complaint. So watch where we go with this. And this is a very important piece of helping his parents also just tolerate his distress. We're keeping it soft and gentle. We do bring him down. Comes over to mom.
You know what you are, right? You just didn't know what that was going to feel like.
So you're hearing me start to verbalize for him what might have been going on. I'm thinking about theory of mind here. What might his experience have been there? So I'm using language to help, and listen to how the quality of his vocalization changes.
Yeah.
It's like you were flying up in the air.
Yeah, this is Eli complaining. There's no tears, there's nothing. He just didn't know that experience. But I'm actually doing it on purpose because I want to see that this requires a stimulus system to work. But you're look angry to me.
Do you want to show mad face?
Yeah.
Do you want to show
That's a
mad
mad face, isn't it, Eli?
Do you have a mad face to show Dr. Susie?
Let me see. Yeah, you were mad. You weren't ready for that. Because you just want to hold on, don't you? Yeah, I see that. I'm listening. I'm listening.
Did you hear how he changes as we identify the emotion?
Whoa. 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 Yeah, that made you angry, didn't it? Yeah. You were having some big feelings. I know.
So mom is saying you have big feelings, and his feelings get louder.
You are angry. I get it. You are angry.
So I say, I see you're angry.
Get out on the drum.
Yeah?
We're going to take some of this out on the drum.
We have two different kinds of details.
So I take out some instruments that can match his feelings.
What is that? Oh, you want one of those, don't
You can try it.
I introduce it, I pause, I wait for his response. And you see his curiosity.
What a weird instrument.
I know. What is this? It's called a thunder drum. Yeah, I know. What a sound.
What a weird sound. I've never heard anything like
You
that before.
shake. You shake. And you pat. Do you want to try it? No?
He's able to answer in the midst of his
What's
distress.
inside here? I don't even see anything.
Very strange.
And we have to tolerate the stress we're feeling as we watch and hear his reaction.
I thought it kind of matched your feeling because you're seeming so angry. You're saying, I wanted to be in mommy's arms. Then I got put in daddy's arms. Then I got put in the scarf. And I just wanted to be in mommy's arms. I know. I don't want to leave mommy. I know, I see that. I just don't want to leave mommy.
So Daddy and I start playing the drums. And he becomes curious.
Hey, Mom. How do you feel right now?
We get Mom to use the drum.
You can respond now.
And he decides to join us. And helping him feel his own
Okay, Mama's turn again.
expression. And there's more to that, but we have to move on. So I hope you saw how we all had to tolerate that distress, but how we were able to be a team together to help him understand that's fine. You're allowed to have these feelings. Let's express them. So next, you're going to see us. This is 7 months into treatment. He's now 20 months old. We can see his more playful ability to be with his dad. I call this an embodied connection to dad, and you'll see why in a moment. Another prop. This is a kind of big, stretchy rubber band with a cloth covering.
Strong pulling. Now Dada's going to pull Eli.
Oh, here comes Eli.
So again, I'm wanting him to be able to feel how it's mobilizing through space, even in a precarious situation.
Whoa.
More.
Okay, here we go. I'm going to pull Dada again. Okay, ready, Dada?
Okay, I'm ready.
1, 2.
Oh,
Whoa! Eli, can you pick up Dada, please?
I need some help.
Hold his hand and pull him up.
Pull me, pull me.
Pull him up. Whoa! Go ahead, pull him up. Whoa! Whoa! Whoa!
More.
Okay. Maybe you and Dada can pull together. Here we go.
So again, helping him feel his body feel secure, even as so we could call this kind of rough and tumble play, as Panskep talks about. And now here he is at the center with this popular song that has become a theme throughout our work together.
Dancing too.
And now he's leading the dance. And then we'll also be able to follow.
To Dr. Susie.
Now, this is the first time he actually got passed to me.
2, 3.
And it's the first time he let anyone else hold him. So these parents were very excited by this.
First we'll go to Dada. Ready?
Okay, Mama.
Go.
Here comes
So we're
Mama.
using the camera together. So Dad had to let go of the camera.
2. And 3.
What was important here was that their parents could see that he was enjoying this. It took time for them to recognize that it was okay to play a little bit more rough and tumble with him, and that we could help organize his vestibular system and his sensory issues by allowing him to be active rather than avoiding these very things that were difficult for him. And that also was really important for Mom and Dad to both see that he could enjoy both parents rather than just one of them. Moving on, now this should say 2 years, 2 months, not 1 year, not 1 year, but now this is 1 year into treatment, and he starts playing. He likes to open and close doors. So again, that was a concern for the parents, worrying that maybe, this was maybe an autistic-like behavior. So I said, well, why is he opening and closing? What's he talking? What's he thinking about? Well, it turned out he was enacting. They lived in one part of the city and I was in a different part. And so he was enacting coming down to my office. He was coming to visit Dr. Susie on the train. They had to use public transportation to get down to me. So we started to really play with that and let him play that out in my office. And you'll see he actually walks out into the waiting room by himself. So this embraced space of feeling connected to Mom has now really expanded, where he doesn't have to be seeing Mom and have Mom in his presence to feel comfortable. And something fun happens in this particular vignette. Dad had not been in the session yet. And during one of the moments of him coming in and out of the door, Dad actually ends up showing up. So that added another sense of agency, that he was safe being in the waiting room, he was safe being with us, and he also could welcome and include his dad.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Where are you going? On the train? Okay. Bye-bye. See you later. Hello. Where'd you go? Where'd you go, Eli? Oh, who's that? Oh, hi.
Oh, hi.
Come on in.
Oh,
He's
welcome.
going on the train all by himself.
Oh, see you on the train.
We're sitting on the rug. Can you do that, Dada?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Dada's on the rug. Where are you going, Eli?
Running
The
game.
running game? You're going to go outside? Let me see.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye, Eli.
You see the joy, you see the confidence in his body, you see the joy he has of being able to articulate what he's doing and being able to physically do this and be able to come in and out on his own. And so this potentially obsessive door opening and closing became a tool to create a storyline. So moving on now, I'm going to jump over to age 4, and we start getting involved in drawing and outlining our activities. And this is an example of the activities we're going to do in our particular session. And we did a mix of drawing and writing to explain and kind of help organize. He did very well with organization. And so this was one of the examples of how we did that. at a certain, so we're kind of mapping out the dance play stories that we are going to do. And you see his own drawings in contributing to this. Next, the family was making a move from one place to somewhere else, and I have 2 offices, so we were going to move our office. He was going to now start seeing me in a different office, and so we made a map, kind of a calendar countdown of when they were moving and what we were going to do. So this became a very important part of our treatment. We then created cell phones. These are our cell phones because we started conversing about our move and pretending the move had already happened. And so these are the cell phones we drew. This one is his. This one, no, this one's his, that one's mine. There you go with my drawing skill. And you're going to see these props in action in a moment. We also drew answering machines. This was a time when answering machines were sitting on tables a lot with people's homes. Here's my answering machine. This is his answering machine. And then we also drew a map of, here we were in New York City. Here we are, this is the river we live nearby. This is my office, which is near the river, and then this is his home and some of the things around his home, and included in his home is a swing set that he was very excited about. So you're going to see in our enactment, we start playing with things he's going to do when he's at his new house, and he's going to want me to come visit him at his new house. This is his drawing of the activities that he's going to do in his new house, and we would now started to progress to writing stories about our work together and during our dance play activities. And so he called this the phone game. And the story was that he is on his phone in his backyard by his swing set. And he calls me, Dr. Susie, and he says, am I in New York or am I going to come visit him at his house? And we started talking about things we did in New York and talking about things we would do at his house if I came to visit. So now you'll see that, and this will be the last vignette, the last movie. So at this point, this is 3 years and 10 months into our treatment, and it covers all the way towards the end of our treatments. So so it's about 4 years and 11 months, and it goes to 5 years. So this is my New York City office, and you see us enacting this dance play.
In New York City with her answering machine and her phone. Let's see what happens.
At this point, he's also having sessions with me alone.
Hello?
Hello?
Who is that?
This is Eli. Well, I was thinking if you wanted to come over to my Largemont house.
Oh, I'd love to come to your Largemont house. Can I bring something?
Okay, so we go on the magic swing?
Sure. I'd love to come on the magic swing. I'll be right over.
Okay.
But wait a minute, should I bring my bungee cord just in case the magic swing gets out of control? Or do you have your magic box?
I have my magic box with me.
So what do you think? Do I need to bring some things for my New York office or not?
Oh, I told you to come over here, so I'm definitely gonna have it.
Oh, okay, sounds good. I'm on my way.
So you don't have to bring it because I have the magic box.
Great. I'll be there in a moment. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, here I go. Coming to see and visit on the... Hi! I'd love to take a ride on the magic swing. What do you think?
Good idea.
All right,
I have my magic box.
Yeah, all right, let's get in our magic swing in your backyard at your new house.
Okay, I'm gonna turn it on.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, I have to push this out two times because now I have the 2 swings.
All right, I'm ready.
Woo!
Woo! Woo!
Tell me anyone.
So I'm going to fast forward a little bit. You see us running around. Part of this is also being able to, again, be spontaneous. Sometimes we tumble a little bit. All of that is okay. So we're back again. Now back to our favorite song with the scars. This is the theme.
What are we gonna do? I'll follow your moves.
We're taking turns, following each other.
All right, let's do
Now we're
this.
back to the magic swing. So I'm just going to move through this a little bit as you see all the different ways we engage and the freedom he has, even the fact that he's in the room with me without his parents.
Blueberries again.
So now we have a little snack.
All right, I love cheese. And here,
So we have a snack and a picnic. And we then, this is our closing ritual to kind of calm our bodies down and regulate.
to our New York office.
You are gonna say chords.
I was, but I'm gonna say hello to Cold Spring and goodbye to New York. So let's do the goodbye song.
You were gonna do it backwards.
I was gonna do it backwards. Let's zip up.
And we take a deep breath, kind of organize our body. This is something we would do when he would get dysregulated.
Smell the flower. And blow out a candle.
You can see how he's really has good control of his body now. So I'm going to move through to, and this is a song we always sang. And now here we are in my Cold Spring office. And this is 3 years and 11 months into our treatment. So we brought the tools that we made there, and here we are.
Let me see. Hello, Dr. Susie's office.
Hello?
Is that you, Eli?
I
How
got your message.
you did? What do you think?
I liked it.
Will you come visit me in my Cold Spring office?
When I'm done swinging,
Okay. Oh, I remember that magic swing.
So now I actually have a trapeze in this office. So when it's time to swing, we actually are able to swing.
Office. What do you think? Got the magic box. So can we go swinging on your swing together?
yes.
And do you want to also dance to our favorite song?
Yes.
What do you want to do first?
And you'll see how,
Okay.
and he's taking care of his little new baby sister. He realizes she has to be out of the way.
Turn it on and I'm ready. All right, come on, jump on. All right, here we go. Woo!
You're going to watch, he's going to fall off and he's going to be fine with that.
Oh boy! Woo! Ready?
Whoa, there he goes. He's totally okay.
What do you think? Should we put another mat over here so if you swing off again, you can land on the mat? Let's do that. Hold on again and see. Did you see that, Lisa? I think you did.
So we swing again. I'm just going to move through just so you can see this fun we're having. And then the final part of this session, we put on our favorite song and we all start to sing and dance to this song. Hold on.
See if you can catch it. Can you try?
And now he's actually able to follow the words of the song as well and to engage. So now we're following each person's contribution to the song, and his baby sister is throwing it up and down. And then this is the final moment.
You be the leader till the end of the song because then we have to clean up and finish our story today. So what's the last part? That you're collecting all the stars. All right. Woo! All around.
So happy and you know it.
So there we are. I'm just going to end. Here's another drawing he made of preparing. Now he's making these at home to prepare to come to my office. And now he's starting to make a list of the activities he wants to do, having a picnic and playing the games that we play and being able to prepare to even come to our sessions. So I'm going to now turn this over to Miri for the final 2 slides, and then we'll have some questions. Miri, you have to unmute. Unmute.
Sorry. So what we have heard from Susie is quite a complex picture of a child with significant risk factors, biological risk factors of his own, and together with mom's gradually letting him go, so lessening her anxiety. And in these complex situations, I find the DC 0 to 5, which I know that you know very well, actually very useful, because it enables us to create a kind of an integrative picture of the multiple aspects of Eli's both protective and risk factors in himself, such as his sensory processing difficulties, his language at the beginning, his motor delay, his social anxiety that was very predominant. He had protective factors also, good intelligence, curiosity, a capacity to be helped by the adults, which is really a big piece. And also he had imagination, his capacity to make a phone out of a piece of paper. And so he was really into it. Now, this, we want also, if we try to summarize the clinical picture, we want also to be able to put something about the risk factors and the protective factors that are in the close environment of the child. So, for example, mom's own past, she had a past she had a difficult past. She does have some current anxiety, and but also she has a capacity to be helped. She was able to let the dad in so that he could have a kind of a buffering impact. And we can see along the sessions how he, with the help of Susie, but also with the agreement of his wife, he could enter the dyad more and more. So, Susie, please, the next slide. No. Oh, okay, you took out. Okay. So on the DC, I would have put on axis 1, I would have put both his sensory processing difficulties, his neurodevelopmental delays, and his hypersensitivity, so sensory processing difficulties. And it would put under the axis 2 the characteristics of the interaction as we saw it at the beginning. So very, very clingy, kind of closed with mom, dad is aside, and this will become a goal of the treatment. And on the axis 3, so the physical axis, he didn't have any illness or past physical adverse experience. But on the axis 4, we would put the maternal anxiety and her own past. And on axis 5, we would put the developmental capacities of the child. And so then when we have this, when we use this DC 0 to 5 framework, it's kind of a still picture that includes all the different elements from the child's point of view and from his or her environment's point of view, and I find it quite useful. So then we have the clinical picture, and we. Sorry.
Thinking about
Susie?
our time, Miri. I'm thinking about our time frame. So I think we should switch to this next slide. Is it okay? This one.
Yeah.
The different modalities.
Okay, so we need to decide to which which modality of treatment we will choose. And we may think of situations where creative art therapy will be less threatening to the parents, especially to the parents. For example, the CPP that I know that you know, based on Alicia's saying, speaking the unspeakable, sometimes it's at the beginning, at least, it's impossible to do because the parents are so afraid of touching the trauma. So we have to kind of prepare them to then become able to touch the trauma. But also in situations where there is a significant gap of language, of belief, of trust between the parents and the clinician, and these become significant barriers that may actually be overcome by the use of music, for example, ethnic music, movement, rather than the use of words and concepts that may be less accessible to them, at least at the very beginning.
Now, I know we are pressed for time, so maybe Dr. Foley, if there's one or two questions we could just quickly answer. I'll just put up these slides. This is the contact information for me. And then this is a book Miri wrote and the new book Miri and I wrote together. These will all be in your slides. Go ahead. Gil, I'm sorry we took up so much time.
Well, it was such a beautiful therapeutic and developmental journey and such a nice analysis. We don't have a lot of questions, but we do have one question, which is the individual says, I'm wondering about the intersection of Dr. Tortora's work and that of the somatic psychotherapies, which have been largely directed toward adults with complex trauma.
Yes, that's an excellent question. You know, we embrace some of the somatic therapies within the context of our work. I think the huge difference is the creative element aspect. It's what the arts bring, using arts mediums to then personalize the experience. So we're using techniques that involve tuning in, somatic processing, sensory motor processing, all those. Often dance therapists and other movement-oriented therapists are trained in those things. But the big difference is creating the child's narrative through expressive means that are creative and using the arts, rather than just working from the somatic place.
Thank you. Thank you. That was our only question. And so.
Thank you so much. And I just wanted to please remind people to fill out the evaluation. Such a rich presentation. Thank you, Miri. Thank you, Susie. And it was really terrific. So please take a moment to fill out the evaluation. We use them to really help guide future trainings. So thank you.
And thank you all for using us, listening to us during your lunch break. Bye-bye.
Bye.